If there is one industry that many people would say has been corrupted by greed, it's the tobacco industry. Their advertising campaigns had a huge effect on the public's view of cigarette companies. And now, as some companies are striving to reverse the negative effects of smoking by offering a less cancerous alternative, the hatred of the industry has been redirected. The reusable vape company, Juul, took the brunt of this reignited anger against the nicotine industry, and it's not hard to see why such swift action was taken by the government when you look at the history of lies from the cigarette companies that serve to keep people addicted to their products, which you won't fall for because you can read books from Amazon to learn about all the lies that the government and shady companies tell the public. Sometimes I have trouble finding books for inspiration, and that's why it's great to have a full library to choose from at Amazon. You can browse through thousands of awesome books on economic history and much more. Learn from great authors about how the world works and all those interesting topics you've been wanting to do a deep dive on. Depending on your preferences, you can pick between Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and Audible. There's a lot of great deals up right now, so scroll down, click the link below, and check out all the great options available. It all started in the 1950s with studies surfacing about the clear link between cigarettes and cancer. In 1954, the tobacco companies released the frank statement to cigarette smokers, saying they believed that the studies were not to be trusted. In the 1960s, more reports came out about the link between lung cancer and cigarettes, and once again, in 1964, they flat out denied it. In 1969, an internal memo within British American Tobacco, or BAT, said,
"Doubt is our product, since it is the best way of competing with the body of fact that exists in the mind of the public. It is also the means of establishing a controversy."
Proving that these companies were very aware of the links between cancer and cigarettes. Eventually, they couldn't deny it, and in the 1970s they resorted to mellowing the harsh of cigarette smoking. They came out with a new line of light, mild, low tar, and filtered cigarettes, all of which had no measurable positive effect on the smoker. Yeah, those filters don't work, like, at all. You might as well smoke some Lucky Strikes. In 1977, another document from BAT said,
"All work in this area should be directed towards providing consumer reassurance about cigarettes and the smoking habit. This can be provided in different ways, including by claimed low deliveries and by the perception of mildness."
And a BAT scientist even said that the effect of switching to a low-tar cigarette may be to increase, not decrease, the risks of smoking, because people tended to smoke more of them and inhale harder. In the 1980s, there was another controversy that threatened the cigarette industry, secondhand smoke, which they again denied was harmful to people, which I mean honestly, if we know that smoke from literally everything is bad for you, then it kinda goes without saying that smoke from the end of a cigarette is bad for you. In the 1990s, animated cigarette ads, like the infamous Joe Camel printed in magazines and posted on billboards, led to another fiasco, violating the Federal Trade Commission Act because of advertisements directed, or assumed to be directed, at children. During this time, underage smoking increased from 27% in 1991 to about 36% in 1997. This was more than the average for adults, actually. These kinds of shenanigans got so bad that today, tobacco and nicotine are some of the most regulated legal substances in the US, from consumption to advertising. But in the past few years, it's been e-cigarettes and vapes on the government chopping block. But this time, the immensity of the backlash was mostly unearned. That claim might be a little controversial, but it shouldn't be. It's never easy to defend a company that sells addictive drugs, especially with so much vaping propaganda out there. Not that nicotine isn't unhealthy or addictive, because it obviously is. But let's call it what it is. It's propaganda that cherry-picks evidence and often completely ignores the truth about the safety and positive effects that vaping has had, like stopping people from smoking, for example. Ironically, the nonprofit anti-smoking company Truth spread all of these anti-vaping lies. I mean, honestly, if truth spreading lies is not the epitome of propaganda, I don't know what is. Even the CDC recognizes that e-cigarettes are not as harmful as tobacco. A paper from the Royal College of Physicians claims that they have significantly less toxins than cigarettes and that they are, at the most, 5% as harmful as regular cigarettes. Like, come on, guys, we know they aren't as bad as cigarettes. But after so much hatred directed at big tobacco and so many lies peddled by the truth anti-vaping ads, the media, and the FDA, It was almost impossible to separate the facts about e-cigarettes from the old lies of the cigarette companies. Most of this was directed at Juul, and oh boy, were they dealt a nasty hand. They were the fall guys for the entire vape industry, all because of one unfortunate ad campaign and their enormous success that led them from an obscure smoking cessation device company to the biggest vape sensation in the United States, eating up 37% of the industry by 2022. So let's take a look at how the sin of success led the government to screw over another company and waste more American tax dollars without actually achieving any positive results. Starting in the early 2000s, smoking began to dip to an all-time low, and overall this was a major success for society. This reduction in smoking was partly because of the multiple truth anti-smoking campaigns highlighting the horrible effects of smoking, and also because of the many regulations that now prohibit smoking inside of and outside of pretty much every establishment, as well as the sale of cigarettes, with some states raising the age to buy cigarettes to 21. Now smoking has become more of a taboo in society, and after many years of reduced smoking, young people now look at it as dangerous, icky, or something that their parents do. There is a dark side to the situation though. It created a huge untapped market of non-nicotine users. All those people who never picked up smoking because it wasn't quote-unquote cool to smoke are now in a sense waiting to be hooked on nicotine, and all they needed was a little push. When e-cigarettes came onto the scene, not many people thought it would be the next big thing. The first vapes were not very user-friendly. They were either too weak, too expensive, or just too confusing for the average person to use. The creators of Juul wanted to change this, and as the San Francisco tech bros that they were, in 2003 they created a vape startup, and by 2008 they started releasing some questionable new products. Their mission statement from the beginning was to stop smokers from smoking cigarettes. So the idea was to build a high-tech smoking cessation device that used vapor instead of smoke. From their perspective, as smokers who wanted to quit, that would be a healthier and more effective alternative than all of the lame nicotine products like Nicorette gum, nicotine patches, nicotine lozenges, and so on. These are not sexy products. They're usually sold behind a locked case next to the checkout counter at a grocery store or drugstore chain. Most people don't like to even be seen buying that kind of stuff. It makes them look like quitters, you know, I don't know. Anyways, it's not cool. We all know that. In the minds of the creators, if the idea was to quit smoking, you needed to preserve the ritual. The part that everyone was missing when they stopped smoking, that chance to step out, relax, or socialize with other smokers. They tried multiple different methods to create a usable vape, with many of them turning out to be incredible failures, popping open and spraying hot vape juice everywhere, burnt fingers from butane heating units, and multiple other common issues. But eventually, in 2014, they finally figured it out. A small, sleek, and effective device that looked just like a thumb drive. All you needed to do was charge it up, plug in your favorite flavored vape juice pod, and it was reusable and ready to go. The Juul pod was their first successful nicotine vape product, and they thought that it could be a big hit, so they got to work trying to sell their product. And in 2015, Juul started a marketing campaign for their product. But oddly, they didn't really market it as a smoking cessation device. They decided to go with more of a lifestyle type marketing campaign called Come As You Are, with dancing people, bright colors, music, and influencers, mostly marketing to millennials. And I mean, marketing poison to young people doesn't sound good. I get it. But
spread that good love, 'cause love is all we need.
yeah, that's right. Everyone who sells addictive poison markets to millennials. Juul isn't alone here. Anyways, it's not surprising why they chose this marketing strategy, even if it was not the best direction for their industry. The guys they hired to market the product were in the modeling and fashion industries, Stephen Bailey and Richard Mumby, and that was the kind of advertising they did. And they put together an ad campaign in less than a month, giving them no time to look up the history of tobacco industry advertising, and this would come back to bite Juul after its release. When the press saw these ads, they immediately started to drag Juul through the mud. Even though they didn't break any laws as their industry wasn't regulated, they knew they screwed up. This kind of marketing was reminiscent of the old cigarette ads from the 1960s that targeted younger adults. So this kind of marketing is now a big no-no for nicotine products. It gave people horrifying flashbacks of commercials from the old days. And with looming FDA regulations on the horizon, Juul started to change up their marketing, but the genie was out of the bottle, and a year after they had started the Come As You Are campaign, they exploded, mostly by word of mouth, social media, and celebrity users. Juul got so popular that they couldn't make enough Juul pods for the distributors, and demand became so much higher than the supply that people would buy it just to sell it on the streets and make a profit. They had massive growth. They were opening up multiple offices, hiring the best employees from the biggest tech companies, and they still had too many orders to meet. They couldn't grow fast enough, and the company's value shot up to $10 billion, and that's when the problems really started. People were using the Juul everywhere, and it became a huge hit amongst high school and middle school kids. It created a frustrating situation for schools, too. Juul didn't smell like smoke, and the teachers didn't know what they were, so it spread like wildfire. But even with all these unsettling things happening in the background, the people in the company still felt like they were helping people. Because less people were using cigarettes, and more people were using this less toxic alternative. However, kids using Juul was not a good look for the company. This was obviously not what Juul wanted. They were not a drug cartel. Selling nicotine to kids is bad business, and this is where most of the legal issues stemmed from. It didn't help that multiple deaths were linked to vaping caused by vitamin E acetate added to the black market THC vape juice. Obviously not made by Juul, but the media portrayed it as if Juul was selling deadly poison that was putting kids in the hospital. This propaganda was a huge blow to Juul's reputation, leading to multiple fiery protests outside their offices, and the FDA was oddly hesitant to say that Juul was not the cause of these issues. Juul's employees spent a ton of time trying to get kids to stop vaping. They started to market Juul differently with the Make the Switch campaign in 2018, focused on getting current smokers off cigarettes and showcasing solely older ex-smokers in their social media. They later stopped all their social media marketing, deleting their Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube accounts. And when the FDA and multiple anti-vaping groups claimed that the reason that kids were using Juul was because of the 7 sweet flavors they sold, it withdrew all flavored Juul pods except traditional cigarette flavors from every outside sales platform, making them available only to its age-verified website. And finally, the company committed $30 million to a youth prevention initiative, attempting to stop the issues of counterfeit products, imitation devices, and unauthorized online sales of both its genuine and counterfeit items. But underage use was simply not something they had the power to stop. They could never improve the parenting of teen nicotine users. And even though they were not using the same advertising campaign anymore, and when they weren't regulated, the government decided to build a case on Juul because the issue was spreading to kids. They needed a culprit, someone to make an example of, and the city of San Francisco attacked Juul by only allowing the sale of pre-market review vapes, which effectively banned Juul there. This was designed to punish Juul for political reasons and get the favor of a narrow interest group of activist mothers called Parents Against Vaping and a small minority of voters. This vape panic spread across multiple states, which put forth legislation to ban flavored vaping products as well, and President Trump at the time even suggested banning them federally. But was it the flavors that kids liked so much? I mean, adults use Juul more than kids. The flavors may be a convincing argument for some, but adults like sweet-flavored things too, as we can see by the obesity epidemic in this country, and having variety is one of the reasons why people like vapes. Blaming flavors would be like saying young people only drink alcohol when they like the taste of it. It might be true that younger people prefer sweeter forms of alcohol, but they're not going to pass up a beer if they want to get drunk. It's not like taking the flavors out of Juul pods will stop people from getting addicted to the nicotine inside. But just for giggles, let's take a look at history and see if this flavor hypothesis holds up. In 1965, when there was no such thing as fruity flavored cigarettes, over 40% of people were smoking, including underage smokers, and smoking in general has consistently gone down since then. The Truth Anti-Vaping studies will tell you that vaping is a gateway to smoking, but smoking is now even further down after the introduction of vapes. Unsurprisingly, since flavors were banned, underage vaping has basically stayed in the exact same place, with high school kids using it slightly less and middle school kids using it slightly more. So banning flavors and the truth anti-vape propaganda has not worked at all. From the evidence we have, it seems the real reason for the continued use of vapes is the availability of easy-to-use, breathable nicotine and curiosity, not the flavors. The government probably went with the flavor narrative because they knew they couldn't get them on the actual Come As You Are marketing campaign that targeted millennials before regulation. The fact is, responsibility has to be distributed. Juul is not free of responsibility here. Everybody sees that. They built the device and started the first marketing campaign. But should Juul be blamed for the unforeseen issues that would arise from making a more effective nicotine delivery device? Let's put it this way. Should Chinese alchemists be blamed for all of the gun deaths in the world because they invented gunpowder? They had no idea what that would mean for the world. Should the inventor of the first knife be blamed for all of the knife crime in the world? Or how about a more recent example? Should the manufacturers of firearms be held accountable for crimes committed with their guns? This is an obvious one. It's a no. No, they shouldn't. People vaping Juul's products is not solely Juul's fault, and there is not much, if anything, that Juul could do about kids using vape products. It's already illegal for them to use it. What else is there to do? Regardless, Juul ended up paying billions in legal settlements across the United States, while helping many smokers stop smoking and without ever directly harming a single person. That's right, not a single death has been attributed to real vaping products, ever. No cancer either. Even with multiple studies on the safety of e-cigarettes showing they contain less than 10 of the thousands of carcinogens that regular cigarettes contain, they still decided to vilify this new company, its employees, and really the entire industry. The government harassment didn't stop with that either. After the new regulations on vapes that treat vapes much like cigarettes, they required a pre-market tobacco product application, or PMTA, and the FDA rejected Juul's application, effectively banning Juul. But they successfully repealed the application, allowing Juul to be kept on the market. This fiasco serves as a warning to anybody attempting to change the world. If you take even the smallest misstep in your journey to help people, or provide people with a better product, your company could become the next example of capitalist greed in the media, and in the increasingly powerful and idealistic courts in the United States. Also, don't underestimate activist mothers, who seemingly have plenty of time and money to lobby against your company, but no time to stop their kids from using illegal substances. Anyways, that's everything. Please check out my sources in the description and let me know if I missed anything. And feel free to help us out with a tip to our Ko-Fi, and if you're a creator struggling to make content, check out Dangsphere in the link in the description, a product meets marketing company that helps creators turn their stories into content that grows their audience and business. Thanks for watching, and stay free.